I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave, yeah. That is what I heard them say way back in the day. I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave, yeah, yeah. But it seems like since that day, yeah, we have sorely changed. I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave, yeah, yeah. That is what I heard them say, way back in the day. I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave, yeah, yeah. But it seems like since that day, yeah, we have sorely changed. Whoa. Hey, hey. Whoa, oh, 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 oh. Whoa, oh, 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 oh.
And now, live from beautiful Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, you're watching My Fellow Americans with your host, Spike Cohen.
Yes, it's me. It's me. Welcome to the show. Oh, thank you. Oh, I know. Me. Keep clapping. How would we know how happy you are if you didn't keep clapping? Welcome to My Fellow Americans. I am literally Spike Cohen, and I literally just got home. So I'm all over the place right now, just making sure that the stream is up and the show is actually running, because that's an important thing, that I'm not just talking to myself. Which, let's see, am I talking to myself? Nope. I'm talking to other people. Hey, how you doing? I'm Spike Cohen. Welcome to My Fellow Americans on this beautiful Wednesday, the 15th of May. This year is almost halfway over. I am horrified by that. But I'm glad you're here with me. I'm happy to have you with me tonight. This is a Muddied Waters media production. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. We are on Anchor.fm. More on that later. We are on Twitter. We are on Periscope. We're on iTunes, Google Play. We're on Stitcher. We're on SoundCloud. We're on a ton of other things. Go find us everywhere. Don't listen to them all at once. Find the one you like the most and listen to that one. Preferably one that makes us money, but really just pick one that you like. We really like if you join us on Anchor.fm / Muddied Waters Media, because we make the most money if you join us there. So check us out there. So glad to have you tonight. Be sure to share this video. Give the gift of Spike Cohen to your closest several hundred Facebook friends or YouTube followers or however you're viewing us right now. Be sure to let them know that they are missing an anarchist podcast at like 9:40 in the evening. They're trying to enjoy some time with their families. Don't do that. Don't let them do that. Don't let them ruin their evening like that. Be sure to share the gift of Spike Cohen. They will. Kids love it. I'd like to thank Kroger for this delicious, purified drinking water that I drink on this and almost every episode of My Fellow Americans. There were a couple that I drank Zephyr Hills water, but I'm not drinking Zephyr Hills water. I'm drinking Kroger. Bulavanaka. The intro and outro music that I play on this and every single episode of My Fellow Americans comes from the amazing and talented Mr. Joe Davi. That's Jodavi. Go to his Facebook, go to his SoundCloud, go to his Bandcamp. It's like joedavimusic.bandcamp.com. Buy his entire discography. It's like $10. You will love it. All of his songs, each song literally better than the previous song. And it doesn't matter what order you play it in. It's that good. So be sure to check that out. Thank you to Mr. Joe Davi for that. As always, shout out to Tehran Turks and Mominum. Guys, this is when I would usually read about my next guest, but I'm not going to do that because I don't have any notes about him. But I know a lot about him. My next guest is the host of the Lousander Show. He also is promoting an upcoming festival that he has every year called the Midwest Peace and Liberty Festival in Festival. Yes, Festival, whatever you want to call it. Midwest Peace and Liberty Gathering in Delton, Michigan. He has that. It's going to be June of this year. I don't know the date even. That is how rough. He is one of the people that when I was transitioning into being an anarchist, that when I would have sort of lingering doubts or questions, he was one of the people I'd bounce stuff off of. And he has made me the smug, arrogant, and yet aesthetically pleasing anarcho-capitalist that you see before you. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, please welcome my guest, my friend and yours, Mr. Lousander. Lou, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, and you're welcome for my service. I was glad that I could exorcise those demons from you.
You did. You actually fought for my freedom, and that was you didn't have to fight hard. You engaged in late night messaging for my freedom. So I appreciate you for that.
Well, you're very welcome. So it's always a pleasure to be able to reach the reachable. And thanks for not kicking and screaming and spitting pea soup on me as I was giving prayers of anarchy for you.
Well, you weren't close enough for me to actually reach you. So
casting the demons out.
Right, exactly. So guys, be sure to comment with any questions or thoughts that you have for me and Lou, and we will tell you if you are right or wrong. Now, Lou, before we get started about I am used to having notes. Before we get used to the Midwest Peace and Liberty Festival, before we start talking about that, I just want to ask you, because I don't think we talked about this before. Because I like when you, looking back at your old posts, when you were a constitutionalist and you would say things like, everything we need is right there in the Constitution. What was it actually... Go ahead.
I thought that disappeared when I got permazucked because I had a post like that, and that was from back around 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
So what I was doing was I was paraphrasing. So parrots aren't real smart. They can't carry on conversations. All they can do is repeat stuff. Right. And quite frankly, most of the people, as far as their political stances go, they don't have any hardcore beliefs. They have stuff that their tribe says and that they repeat.
Like follow the Constitution?
Yes. We don't need more laws. We already have a great law. It's called the Constitution. And it's got all the vitamins and minerals in it that we need. It's got all the restraints. It does what we need it to do, and blah, blah, blah. So really what got me out of that was... one, I read the Constitution.
That was a big one. When I didn't just read the Bill of Rights, but I actually read the first, 7 articles, I thought, oh wow, it's not very free to me at all.
Yeah, well, most of the self-proclaimed constitutionalists out there, and I can't even tell you how many I've run into that admit that they've never read the Constitution. They like the idea of it, they like what it envisions, and some of them, maybe they tried to read it and they went through like the first 7. They went into the it's not the preamble. I was going to say the prologue. Yeah. Fictional writing has prologues. So anyway,
so the prologue.
So they go into the preamble and they say, "We the people." Oh, that means that we did it collectively, jointly, together.
Yeah,
it was never we the people because none of us were alive back then and all that other stuff. So. Once you get past that being nonsense, and then also I learned, I read some things that were critical of the Constitution, and I learned that, much to my surprise, that the Constitution wasn't something that they came out of the hall, the convention hall in 1787 for the coup, for the conservative counter revolution, and people cheered and all this sort of stuff, and they said yay, 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 and then some lady says to Franklin, well, what form of government have you given us, sir? A republic, if you could keep it.
If you can keep it.
And yeah, and interestingly enough, there's no actual evidence that he said that, and there's no mention of it until like several years later. And the person who really made it popular claims that he heard it, but nobody had ever said anything about it for like the first 50 years or whatever. But
there's no one mentioned it,
so
and everyone's like, I remember 50 years ago. So that's fanfic. Yeah, so it's founding father fanfic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the religiosity that goes along with statism. It's like the high school reputation, because there's always a girl that had to move away because she did something embarrassing that involved going to the doctor to have it removed, and because she'd moved away, everybody just said, "Oh, well, that's what happened," whether it did or not, and it probably didn't. But I mean, the bottom line is people make stuff up, and legends are born.
I like you equating the founding of the Constitution with an abortion. I think I might use that in the future. That's a
actually I wasn't thinking abortion. I was thinking of, well, I'll tell you afterwards. But it's much more disgusting.
Okay, all right. Well, then I'll just keep thinking abortion for now. We get a comment. Justin Turner says, "Will the country ever come together and realize that you and I are the right ones?" One would hope, but no. We'd hope,
I won't even
but
realize
also
that.
I know. Let's start with the guest. Let's start with making the guest realize that I'm right. One step at a time. Once we get the guest, we can do that first step, the guest, and then we go on to the world from there. So, yeah, I'm where you were. It was people like you that were saying, "Have you read the Constitution?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I have."
All 10 amendments, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
So what happens is somebody will go and they'll get the Constitution, and they'll be reading the preamble. We the people to make the more perfect union.
Right.
Hey, that sounds pretty good. And then they start getting into Article
General
1.
welfare.
Well, they start getting into Article 1. It's not really exciting, so they're like, I'm going to skip ahead and see if it gets any better. So they're going through Article 1, and they're not even at Article 1, Section 8 yet, where it says that the Congress has the power of unlimited taxation, national debt, interfering with commerce, making all laws necessary and proper to ensure a proper welfare state.
Right.
So they don't go through that. They just look at Article 1 and are like, too long, didn't read, and they jump over the Bill of Rights. They're like, yeah. They're like,
let's get to that Second Amendment, man.
Yeah. But not too much Second Amendment, because that would be reckless.
Well, you're going to have a Second Amendment, you have to do it the legal way. Then there's of course the habeas corpus clause, which basically says government can suspend habeas corpus if and it gives all this weasel wording for all the different ways that it can kidnap and murder you without even having a stated reason, as long as it's during a time of war, rebellion, or crisis, and then it even leaves any conditions that may require it. Meaning, like, if the government decides that the government needs to do this to you, that's fine. Which is why the NDAAs that allowed Obama and now Trump to indefinitely hold American citizens without a warrant, it was ruled constitutional.
Right.
Because it is.
Yeah. Well, it comes from Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2. So the Congress has the power to suspend the privilege, not the right, the privilege of habeas corpus in time of a foreign invasion or domestic rebellion, whenever the public safety may require it. I'm not using notes either here. So who is it that... But I'm pretty darn close. I may have been off by a comma or something like that.
Require it's the big part.
Yeah. So who determines that it's a rebellion? So Congress has the power to determine that there is a rebellion. So if people try to alter or abolish the form of government when it becomes tyrannical, like from the Declaration of Independence, if they try to do that, then that's considered a rebellion. And in that case, the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended.
Right.
So all it takes is the interpretation of Congress critters to say, yep, we're at a point to where we need to do this because public safety.
Like
So
literally,
if-
that's
if
all.
you-
And the oversight is from them. So it's sort of like when
Yeah.
the police kill someone, and then the police get together and decide that the police really needed to kill that guy, and it just couldn't be avoided. It just said he feared for his life. It's the exact same thing.
When
It's the
you-
same oversight.
Whenever you see a picture of the Supreme Court, you should just have the caption, "The government investigated itself and found that it did nothing wrong."
Or
So
or they'll sometimes throw us a bone and go, that thing that happened 50 years ago? We're super sorry about that. And here's some money that we're going to rob from you and give back to the survivors to make up for it. Aren't we great and progressive? But like in terms of what's happening right now, they're like, no, that's all fine. And we're going to lock up anyone who's even, leaking that this is happening because of course it's fine. It's fine, but we also don't want you to know and we'll cage anyone who tries to kidnap anyone that tries to tell you. So, go ahead.
And of course, Joe Patriot that thinks with his flag instead of his brain, he'll say something like, "Well, our government would never do that," or "Our military would never take up arms against the citizenry." And then when you point out that they did that to their fellow veterans during the bonus army protests, and as a matter of fact, who was that? Oh, General MacArthur was part of that, and not Eisenhower. I think Patton was involved. So they'll say that our military would never do that. You point out that they did it, and then reflexively, without even a thought, they'll say, "Well, that was different," or they probably had a good reason for it. So they would say that quicker than I did.
That wasn't real constitutionalism.
Yeah,
That wasn't real.
So-
The army not doing that.
yeah. So really, when you look at the Constitution, and everybody has this cartoon version of it that they're just repeating, that it's this thing about freedom. And if you read the 7 articles, you don't see a lot of freedom in there. You have the 10 amendments that were a pacifier to keep the anti-federalists and pretty much the general population from launching a second American Revolution and putting down the coup. So as a matter of fact, the Constitution was so unpopular. Had it gone to a vote across the country, had we the people decided on it with a ballot, it would have got killed big time. The only place that went to a vote of the plebiscite, meaning the general voting public, was in the state of Rhode Island, where it was killed 11-1.
They didn't mention
Rhode
that
Island-
in social studies.
No, they told you that CO2, aka plant food, is bad. But Rhode Island was also the last state to join the Union, and they basically did it. Don Hamiltoni basically told them, says, you're going to join our little association here, or it might be a shame if your windows got broken out or your place got put on fire.
Be a shame if something was to happen to this place. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically they got threatened into it, because domestic security or some crap. But if you just look at the difference in the language that's used, the conservative counter-revolution says that in times of rebellion, the military may be used to put down rebellion. It also defines that rebellion as, it can define it as treason. It says that those people don't deserve a trial or to have their grievances heard, even though they got that stupid First Amendment. But the language of the Declaration of Independence, the radicals decided that when a government becomes tyrannical, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. So just look at the difference there.
Well, and I mean, these are the same. I mean, everyone loves the Tree of Liberty quote, unless it's actually applied to police officers or anyone who actually would tread on you. As long as it's being used against. What's that?
Do you know the origins of that quote?
The tree, and for those who don't know, the Tree of Liberty, it says the Tree of Liberty should be refreshed from time to time. Again, no notes. Refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. It's its natural fertilizer or something like that. Meaning, sometimes liberty will have to be refreshed by killing people that are trying to keep you from being free. Anyway, go ahead with the. So I don't know the background now.
I don't remember who the letter was two, but Jefferson was in France at the time as an ambassador. And so, no, most of you Constitution lickers, Jefferson was not a part of the Constitutional Convention, the writing of it, or any of that crap, because he was out of the country. Had he been in the country, he probably would have talked people into burning the conspirators. But anyhow, so he was awaiting his copy of the Constitution. He had not seen it yet, and he says, "Well, I'm sure that there are probably some good parts in there, but I'm sure that there are also some really bad ones." And the reason for the Constitution, the reason that the conservatives said that they needed a new central government, was because of Shays' so-called rebellion. The amount of violence that happened in Shays' rebellion, and even on both sides, I think the death toll was lower than after like most major sporting championship games. So there's much less destruction than when a Detroit sports team wins a championship. Excluding the Lions, because they don't win championships. So
I was going to say, do we have any recent empirical evidence for this? Yeah.
Well, the Tigers did pretty good. The Red Wings were very good for quite a long time, and the Pistons were pretty good too. They had some back-to-back stuff. But anyway, so what you had a lot of protesting, and about all that was going on was they were going into these court proceedings where property was being foreclosed upon, and they were disrupting the proceedings. So they were shouting people down. They were also calling for points of order and stuff like that. So they're trying to be heard, and they were nonviolent about it. But the thing is, the Massachusetts state government tried to expedite the payment of the war debt. So they wanted accelerated repayment of it, but they also wanted it to be paid in specie, so it had to be in silver. Now, out in the western frontier, there was no silver available, and they should have been asking for moon rocks or unicorn tusks,
right?
Because
right.
It just didn't exist. So what you had was a clear case of taxation without representation, because the people out in the frontier, they weren't being represented.
Right.
They were getting trounced on by Boston, where the majority of the population was. It's just like any big city that dominates a mostly rural state.
Right.
But they weren't even protesting against paying taxes. They were protesting it against the provisions of it. So it's not like there were a bunch of anarchists out there saying taxation is theft and alter and abolish you guys.
No, they were just saying we can't pay you. Like, let us pay you in a way that we could, we can give you, I don't know, buffalo pelts or something like that. Like, there's not. I mean, what did they have gold out there yet, or that was before the gold strikes?
Gold was in the New World for quite a long time. Whether it was circulated in really large amounts back then, I don't really know.
Yeah. But how they obviously had some medium to trade with, so why not accept that? Because they didn't want that in Boston. So
yeah, well, the thing is, they couldn't use like the script that was being used. So in a lot of cases, they were bartering, and just like with the Whiskey Rebellion, there was a shortage of specie out in Western Pennsylvania, and whiskey was used as a currency.
Right.
And you got to remember, it wasn't for most of. Probably a good portion of the 1800s, there wasn't an actual real currency, I don't think.
Right, a U.S. dollar, right.
So that's something that came about later. You had the greenbacks that were pretty short-lived. You had the Continental that made the Zimbabwe dollar look like nothing. But the big thing is, I just started learning a little bit about history. I learned a lot about economics, and also, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been several years since I've been engaged in the political process, but I worked on a congressional campaign. And when I joined that campaign, I says, well, holy cow, I guess I'm just going to have to read this Constitution through and through. And I was one of those guys, I started reading it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm falling asleep here.
Right.
But I forced myself to read all the junk that's in there. And it's like, where's all this liberty people are talking about?
Right.
So
exactly.
obviously it's the people that have only read the Bill of Rights, and they just assume that everything else is chock full of goodness. But I think the North Korean Constitution has a Bill of Rights in it.
Yep.
Chapter 5 is their fundamental rights and duties.
Yeah.
Article 67 guarantees freedom of speech, the press, assembly, political demonstration, and says that the state has to allow everybody into the political process. And Article 68 is freedom of religion. So between those two articles, you got the First Amendment.
I remember reading, maybe it was you that sent it to me. Someone sent me a link to the North Korean Constitution, their part with their human rights section or whatever they call it. Yeah, it was probably you. You were one of you people.
Fundamental.
And it was like,
what do you mean,
reading
people?
it, you upper peninsula people, you Southern Canadians. But I read it and I'm like, this actually in many ways sounds better than the Bill of Rights, which just shows how worthless it is. Like, you have people that are eating tree bark to survive, and if they try to leave, they get shot. But they got this piece of paper that says that whether they're even allowed to read it or not, that says they have all these rights guaranteed by the government. I guess they're just not doing it right. It's not real North Korean.
It's not real
constitution.
Not real constitution. Yeah.
Not real constitution. Yeah. So that's interesting. So you did the congressional campaign, read the Constitution, and then you're like, okay, I don't think I agree with this.
Well, it was a little bit more than that. The candidate was co-opted, but I think before he had even won the primary. I think he was definitely co-opted before he even won the election. He was John Boehner's smoking buddy early on, before the election had even happened.
Oh, okay.
So I watched this guy just basically go from Anakin to Darth, and he was one of these Ron Paul guys. But like a lot of the Ron Paul candidates, he was more saying what he needed to say, and it wasn't an actual reflection of true conviction. It was, well, I believe this. Freedom is important so long as it's done legally, and so long as it doesn't interfere with the safety of others, and blah blah blah.
Right.
Just all the nonsense that goes along with it. So after he won, I got the job offer, and rather than joining up, I says, I'm going to have to respectfully decline. Thank you very much. Good luck to you. See ya.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, we're glad you're here. So the Midwest Peace and Liberty Festival, which I've done a terrible job so far of promoting, mostly because literally I came in, I had gotten some fish from the store, I threw that into the freezer, and then ran in here and started setting stuff up. I've had no time. So we do have, thankfully, we have a clip to an ad that you've done, audio clip that I'm going to play now for the Midwest Peace and Liberty Festival, and then we can talk all about it. So here we go.
It is your right, your duty, and your privilege to attend the 7th Annual Midwest Peace and Liberty Fest held at the Circle Pine Center in Delton, Michigan, just outside of Kalamazoo, from Thursday, June 20th to Monday, June 24th. This is the most important Liberty Fest of our lifetimes. This is both an adult and family-friendly camping event. There will be all sorts of outdoor activities, games, discussions, and bacon. Lots of bacon. Scheduled speakers will include CJ Kilmer of the Dangerous History Podcast and Brett Vanat from School Sucks. Make sure your voice is heard by rounding up your friends and family and getting them registered today at mplfest.org. That's Mike, Papa, Lima, Fest.org. Dogs welcome, longer leashes recommended, and a vote for Anarchon is really a vote for Agorafest.
So I like the references to most important of our lifetime and round up your friends and register them. Because you got to do, if you're gonna go to the Midwest Peace and Liberty Festival, get in line and go through the process like our ancestors.
Come in through the front door.
Come in through the front door. We have a wall with a beautiful door. Come through that and let's see your papers. So tell me about, because this is is it 19th annual?
No, this is the 7th.
Oh, 7th annual. Sorry. So you've had a few of these. Tell us about, how did this get started? Like what got you started with the Midwest Peace and Liberty Festival?
Oh gosh, this is really it's almost storybook to tell it. And its origin started out before I became involved with the group, but there were a handful of people that they were the early membership of the Michigan Peace and Liberty Coalition. And they were sitting around together in like January or February of, I think, 2013, in somebody's living room, huddling for warmth and everything because it's Michigan. And they're saying, you know what, we should go camping this summer. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. And they talked about it a little bit, and eventually they're like, well, you know what, let's invite a bunch of people. Let's get as many people as we can. And it got turned into a Facebook event. And I was, at this time, I was a pretty much newly minted anarchist, still trying to find out where I was and everything. And I wasn't even a radio show host yet. As a matter of fact, I wasn't even a blogger yet. I think I was the admin for the Freedom Fiends Facebook page. So basically I would post memes and then sweep up after they did the shows. So anyway,
you were what Matt and I need and Jason need for Muddied Waters, just like a lackey, like, please do this because we don't feel like doing this.
Yeah, my lackey time is in the past.
No, I didn't mean you. I meant we need. We need someone like. No, I didn't mean you should do this for us. I'm saying we need someone like that. So if anyone out there would like to be a lackey, unpaid lackey, be sure to hit us up in the slide into our messages, and we will hook you up immediately.
So what you just did, I heard an advertisement on the Freedom Fiends for an unpaid Facebook admin, and I'd never adminned any pages before, but I'm like, I listen to the podcast, and I've got a pretty good meme stash. I could do this. Right. So I sent Michael a message, and he got me set up on there, and I started making posts and everything else, and I basically took ownership of the Freedom Fiends page. So I would promote shows and everything else, and also post stuff that I wanted to post, but it worked out pretty good. So they did what they called fiend sourcing. So they made a call to action to their listeners. I answered the call, and eventually Michael asked me if I wanted to be a blogger, and I was pretty popular. My satire posts were the best ones. So I did a little bit of that, and I also did a little bit of libertarian stuff. And then eventually, when the first Midwest Peace and Liberty Fest happened, I did part of the live report, the Fiend in the Field report. So Ben Stone, the Bad Quaker of badquaker.com, he came up with his wife and his dog and solving mysteries along the way. And we did a broadcast from Ben's camper. So we called into the Freedom Fiends and did a little broadcast on there, live from the event.
Cool. So that was the first year.
Yeah, and then later, a couple months later, I think it was, Michael sent me a microphone and said, "Here, do something with this." And I wound up doing my own show. Or going on the Freedom Fiends, and then now I have my own show, the Lousander Show, that I'm the absentee landlord of because I haven't put out any episodes in a while. I haven't done much of anything, but
you put up the ad for the festival. So
I
also last month.
Well, I also posted some guest appearances too. But anyhow,
That's true. So
going back to the original story of how it got started. So I see this post. I'm sitting in my apartment and I'm like, oh man, I wonder if these anarchists out there on Facebook are real or if they're just like government agents trolling and trying to bust me. You know, because there's an awful lot of government agents out there just looking for me. So anyway,
just to bust you.
Yeah, because I've been a libertarian for like a whole 30 minutes now, so they were onto me at like 29 minutes ago. But anyway, so I see this event and I'm like, hey, this is pretty cool because a somewhat local page had shared it. So I clicked yes, I'm going. I posted in there. I says, this sounds great. I can't wait to go. I'm so excited, blah, blah, stuff like that. And a couple minutes later, I got friend requests from a couple of the organizers who were also founders of the Michigan Peace and Liberty Coalition. And I got invited out to some of the meetups. So they'd have like at least one, sometimes two monthly meetups, and just discuss what about the roads and all these different subjects. But Somalia.
It was also
moving to Somalia. Yeah. But it was also, okay, what can we do to get more freedom? One guy was doing a presentation on Bitcoin. That was the first meetup I went to, and Bitcoin was still pretty new at the time. So most of the people there didn't know a whole lot about it, but this guy was out in front on it. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I got a chance to meet these people that I was Facebook friends with, but I'd never met in real life before. And it was really a good time. But like the first meetup I was invited to, I missed it. I may have had some stuff going on, but I may have been a little bit lazy. And to be honest, when I heard about the fest, I said, "Yeah, this is going to be great. This is going to be great." But I probably would have backed out because a lot of people they get really excited about an idea of doing something, but when it comes time to do it, like go camping for a weekend and having fun, for some reason they get a little bit funky and they back out of it. They find excuses not to do these things, and then they complain that there's nothing to do
Because
so
they're anarcho-agoraphobists, right? Like they're you mean outside with people? No, I'm okay. I'll stay here.
Well, it's not just anarchists. This is really a common trend among people that they always find a reason to back out of stuff at the last minute. So it's like when there's a Facebook event and you see 1,000 people have answered that yes, they're going. You know
Right.
that basically 100 might show up.
Right.
So, and quite frankly, I probably would have found some BS excuse not to go. But by that time, I was so involved with the group because we were getting together like almost every weekend and doing stuff. So we'd have our meetups, but we'd also have campouts in people's backyards. And what I really liked about it was you had this family environment, and it was all based on the principles of anarchism. So,
And bacon.
Lots
And
of bacon.
So this year's, I was going to call it the Bacon Fest. Well, we can call it the Bacon Fest, the Midwest Bacon and Bacon Fest. So besides the bacon, which, by the way, we're not joking when we say that there's an ungodly amount of pork products being consumed, meat in general, being consumed at these things with the full capacity assault kitchen.
Yes.
The assault kitchen.
It's got the bump stock. It's got the shoulder thing that goes up.
To make it real murdery. It's big and
the
scary
extended
and
magazine
black.
release. Yeah.
So besides the bacon, tell us about what's going to be at this festival this year. There was some mention of the School Sucks guy, which I thought was funny. But tell some of the speakers and things. Tell us about what's going on at this festival.
Are you familiar with School Sucks?
I've heard of it, but I've never. Is it like schoolsucks.com?
School Sex Project. People don't use web addresses anymore. They just basically do Google searches.
Yeah.
So
right.
if you put in School Sex Podcast or School Sex Project, Brett's story is pretty interesting. He went to school to become a teacher, and he went through school, and I think he may have done a year or two of actual teaching, but he got to look at what was going on in the schools. And then he was also a big fan of John Taylor Gatto. So Gatto was the guy that spent 30 some years in the New York public school system,
Right.
Teacher of the Year a couple times. And he basically blew the whistle on how it's just a big giant indoctrination program.
Yeah, it's a big mess, right?
Yeah. Well, not so much the indoctrination, but the crappy education that kids get out of it.
Right.
So Brett, he left like regular teaching and got involved in other types of things. So I think he did some tutoring, but he also launched a School Sucks project, and it's about alternatives to the mainline school system. Because even the private schools and the parochial schools, they still follow a lot of the government model. So
well, and even if they're not using, the federal No Child Left Behind standard or whatever, they're still using the Prussian school model that was designed to make, factory workers and soldiers. Like, I mean, it's not a model for people to expand their minds and horizons. It's about teaching them to become compliant and, Pavlov's dogs responses to bells and stuff like that. So, I mean, a school's a school, unless you're talking like a Montessori or one of these other where they're using a completely different model. Schools are schools.
Yeah, they want people that are smart enough to pull the trigger, but not smart enough to ask why.
To ask why, right? Exactly. So
that's his story in a nutshell. So if you go to School Sucks podcast and listen to that, there's a lot of great stuff on there. I've barely caught a drop in the bucket of it, but there's some really good stuff on there, and Brett has some pretty good conversations with people. As a matter of fact, there was one that I've been meaning to get around to listening to, one series they did on procrastination. And
well,
I seriously do want to listen to it. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah, he did one about echinacea, but I just keep forgetting to. Anyway, I hate that. Okay. Anyway, so cool. So what are the other types of people that are going to be on there? Who else do you have booked for?
Okay,
there?
So we have Prof. CJ, and CJ is from the Dangerous History podcast,
mm-hmm.
and I love that podcast. That is one that I subscribe to. So I'm subscribed to his email list, so I get an email when his shows come out, and I download them and I listen to them. And I don't think there's more than just a couple shows that I've listened to only once. I think most of them I've gone through and listened to several times. As a matter of fact, his series on the War for American Independence, and then also Revolutionary Aftershocks, talking about the response to Shays' so-called rebellion. Oh yeah, going back to that. So Sam Adams, Mr. Freedom, he threw a fit over Shays' rebellion. And he's like, it's okay to rebel against a king, but if you rebel against a republic, then you need to have your balls shaved.
Right. That's treason.
Yeah. And he went uber status on there. So yeah. So when in that letter, they referenced Shays' rebellion and how people were throwing a hissy fit and a panic, saying that America has devolved into anarchy, eek, because some people had a complaint over taxes.
Right. Because that wasn't what started the whole thing in the first place.
Yeah. So the conservative counter-revolution that was in the states were actually behind this, because what they got out of this was, before they had to put down their own rebellions. So by coming up with a centralized power, yes, they ceded some of their power, but they also got the federal military to go and put down rebellions for them to help them out.
Oh, wow.
And also they would do some of the dirty work. So it's like when the Whiskey Rebellion happened, and the largest distiller of whiskey, or one of the largest distillers at the very least, George Washington. Now, when they had that 25% whiskey tax, and he sent 13,000 troops into Western Pennsylvania. By the way, 13,000 troops is more than he ever had under his direct control as the commander in chief of the Continental Army. But anyway, when he sent them into Western Pennsylvania to put down one of the smaller of the whiskey tax protests, that was just the Constitution being constitutional. Because it is constitutional to lay taxes without any limit. It's constitutional to have the military put down rebellions. Yep. So that was, and like I said, he was one of the largest distillers of whiskey. And the way the tax was written, it was a 25% tax on every gallon produced for the small producers that couldn't afford the somewhat nominal fee or nominal annual fee. So if you were large enough to pay the annual fee, it didn't cost a whole lot. But if you were a smaller producer, you couldn't afford to pay that nominal fee, and therefore you had to do the 25% of each gallon produced.
So I'd imagine that the larger producers had absolutely no problem with that, because it cut out their competition and made it more profitable for them.
The larger producers like George Washington. Yes, that is correct.
It's funny how that works. So that sounds like a bit of a scam, but I'll tell you guys what isn't a scam. They give you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or your computer. They have creation tools that will allow you to record and edit your podcast, so it sounds great. They will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership And so be sure to check that out. Go to anchor.fm or download the Anchor app to get started today. Yeah. So we have to do that about partway through. So you've got so Professor CJ is going to actually be there.
Yes.
Oh,
and
cool.
I don't know what his topic is going to be, but he'll be doing a presentation this year. Last year it was about being intellectually omnivorous or avoiding intellectual incest or something like that. Basically, his point was don't go to all the same source for everything. Avoid the confirmation bias that goes along with it.
Right. Exactly.
So it's look at things that are different from what you tend to believe. So if you want to, if you were an Austrian economist, there's nothing wrong with reading Keynesian economics. So if somebody like what's his name? I think Glenn Hubbard. There's a couple Keynesian economists that are supposedly not too bad, but with them, yeah, there's nothing wrong with reading them. You don't have to accept it as holy writ. And if you hear something that's challenging to what your beliefs are, now if you get bothered by it, then you have to question how good your beliefs are.
That's the thing. I've been embracing stoicism the last year or so to try to be more mindful and stuff like that, and it's been really cool to let go of my. How do I word it? So, a lot of people, and I was one of them. You find something that you really strongly believe in, and your being right about that becomes part of almost like your how you see yourself in terms of your self-worth. And so when you debate it with people, you're not just debating that subject, you're debating how right you are and how smart and really intelligent you are about it. And that feeds so much bias because now you're actively looking for things that feed the bias that you're right, and you actively push away things that say, well, maybe you're wrong about that. And it allows you to, and that's how people get kind of, caught up in these belief systems. And then they'll often, when they change beliefs, something really hits them hard and they change, they go right back to, they go from being, I see it a lot with, libertarians. They'll become conservatives, or they were conservatives or progressives or whatever. Then they become libertarian, and then they just get, sucked into that. That's now, and their specific brand of libertarianism, whether it's minarchism or anarchism or mutualism or whatever it is, they get sucked into that, and they're like, well, no, this is right. And it's been very freeing the last, year or so, that when I find things that challenge my beliefs, I actively am like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. Let me find out so I can be right about it or be closer to right about it. So that's really cool that he's doing that. And we actually talked about him a lot on the first episode that we don't talk about. But we talked about him. Shiloh Larch has commented, she apparently is a Paul Gordon fan. She said, just fast forward to the Paul Gordon part. And then later she said, I heard Paul Gordon uses anchor.fm. And I don't know if that's true. So
yeah, block and report her.
Blocked and reported. So is there going to be an ongoing battle in the Bacon Wars at the Midwest Peace and Liberty Festival, or is there an armistice that's been called so that people can enjoy the day?
Well, much like the Christmas truce during World War I, Paul and I call a ceasefire. Now, he does come over to the assault kitchen, and all the bacon that's prepared over there is fried, and he eats the fried bacon. And I tell you what, he has a very contented look upon his face as he eats the fried bacon.
Wow.
Dare I say, he looks like he's climaxing.
Wow, that's a mental image that I needed in this moment. But I also, is there footage of this? Because that could blow apart. He's built up a pretty solid brand of being the bacon baker. So to see him eating fried bacon, or frying, if you will, and enjoying it, that could be kind of scandalous, no?
It could. And I'm pretty sure there may be some video footage. I'm pretty sure there's some audio footage of it too. of him talking about it. So I think he described it as like a pork orgasm in his mouth. Don't
Again,
quote me on that.
another
I might have the
great
punctuation
mental
wrong.
image. Just a series of really positive mental images with all of that. So thank you, Shiloh, for starting that conversation. So that's cool. It starts. Is it what, June 9th that it starts this year?
It's Thursday, June 20th, so it starts at sometime in the morning. Totally unprepared.
This is the roughest show I've done since the time that I had to flee a hurricane, and then I got back and it was flooding, and I did that show too. Yeah. Anyway, so go ahead. So June 20th.
June 20th, and it ends on Monday, June 24th. And Monday morning is a tear down, put your stuff away and go home day. But there is one event on that morning. I do what's called Final Breakfast. So it's a big giant group breakfast, and I prepare food for everybody that's still going to be there on Monday morning. And there's usually a pretty good sized crowd that's there. So people will donate leftover potatoes, bacon, eggs, stuff like that, and I'll whip it all up. I have I think it's a 4-gallon cast iron Dutch oven. So it's a 16-inch diameter, and it's the largest one that I've seen sold. I mean, outside of maybe something that you need like a gang of illegal immigrants to move around for you. But anyway. Right. So I fill that thing up with hash browns, and I just do bunches and bunches of eggs, and I fry up bacon and sausage, whatever's there. And you would think that would be enough, but wait, there's more. So we set up the table to where everybody can go through the little buffet line. And last year was really nice because when I went to go put all the stuff over there was no room, and I had to move stuff around because people brought all this leftover fruit and stuff. So there were strawberries and cherries and bananas, and just all this different fruit cut up, ready to go, and it was pretty awesome.
Sounds awesome.
People, they'll bring over bagels and all this stuff that they have left over. As a matter of fact, some of the people that leave on Sunday will drop stuff off on Sunday night saying, here's for final breakfast. There was a vegetarian. She stayed, and she doesn't eat any meat, and everything's got meat because I even fry the hash browns in bacon grease, but she donated a couple bags of potatoes. So it's this big, giant voluntary thing.
Nice. That's really cool. And wasn't there a wedding there one year, or was that just like a gimmicky thing? I thought I saw pictures of a wedding.
There were 2 weddings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So James Weeks, the stripping libertarian, officiated one wedding, and then that couple wound up having another wedding after that. So I don't know if they had a second one for actual family and stuff, or what,
or legal reasons. Right.
Yeah. Well, I think James is an ordained minister.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he got ordained out of the back of Rolling Stone magazine or something like that.
I was gonna say the Cracker Jack Church of go ahead.
Pastafarians.
Pastafarian, yeah.
But anyway,
Cthulhu, the Church of Cthulhu.
Cthulhu. Yeah. So anyway, there's another couple that got married, and that was their actual wedding. And Shannon, one of our friends, she officiated that because she's an actual ordained minister also. I think a little bit more than like out of the back of a Rolling Stone magazine or off of some seedy corner of the internet.
Right.
So anyway, but yes, so weddings. Now let's see who else we have there for speakers at this time. Excuse me. I'm having coughing fits. I've been sick for like 3 months.
Oh no.
So anyway, on Friday we got Paul Rosenberg. I'm not sure who that is. If it's the crypto hippie Paul Rosenberg, I'm gonna be super excited about that. I've heard a couple of interviews with him. Ben Stone had interviewed him on the Backwaker podcast, so I'm hoping it's the same guy.
Cool.
And then let's see, Saturday Larry Ludlow, CJ, Stephen Wave, How to Travel Freely. I don't know too much about that. Let's see. Shane Radcliffe from the Vanu podcast and Liberty Under Attack. Brett Venat will be doing a presentation. I'm gonna absolutely destroy this name. Ole Petahowi. He is our Norwegian game developer who lives in Indonesia. So if somebody lives like 8 hours away and they say that's too far to go, Ole comes in from Indonesia. This will be a third time. Yeah, this will be a third time. So when you say that you can't drive 5 hours to get there, I'm not sympathetic.
Oh, I couldn't possibly get there. I'm in Chicago. Well, you're not. Indonesia's pretty much exactly halfway around the world, no?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
And then John Vibes will be there, and he's doing something with Ole. But John Vibes, he's a writer for the Free Thought Project. Let's see, what else we got? Nick Hazelton, my young apprentice. So Nick Hazelton, I've known him on Facebook since he was like 14 or something like that. And his big thing is he dropped out of school to make something of himself. And his dad was like the superintendent or the dean of the charter school that he was in.
Right.
So that's gotta be a little bit awkward, but
yeah,
he just didn't feel like he was getting anything out of school, and he wanted to raise yaks, and so he wound up dropping out of school eventually, and he's got a yak farm, and he's doing his thing out there, and he's happy with what he's doing. He's enjoying himself.
A yak farm.
Yeah,
I'm familiar with a yak. What precisely? Is it the yak fur or yak meat? What?
All of it.
Oh, okay.
And the thing is, the yak meat is not regulated because it's like a specialty meat or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So it's not regulated like cow and all that stuff. But yeah, the fur is valuable. The meat is valuable. You could probably even get
some yak milk.
Yeah, he does a yak milk too. So I don't know if he can sell that, but anyway. So he doesn't have a top hat and a monocle. He doesn't have a top hat and a monocle yet, so he's not having that kind of success. But he's having happiness success.
Hey, listen, if you can etch out a living doing what you love, especially if it involves yaks or alpacas or something like that, I'd say more power to you. I remember we were driving somewhere and we stopped at a stop to get food or whatever in like Pennsylvania, and this guy pulled up with a trailer full of alpacas, and they were all just chilling out in the trailer, and it was a guy, he had quit his job, he'd worked some kind of 9 to 5, and he quit it and started farming alpacas, and he was making, he had a new truck, so he made enough money to get a new truck, but more importantly, he was super, I was like, because I was just so curious. I was like, so are you like, you're enjoying, like, is this fun? He's like, I'm having the most fun I've ever had in my whole life. He's like, it's like having 20 pets that I make money off of. I'm like, okay. Because I have pets and don't make any money off of them. So I can absolutely, I think it's cool. So if this guy's doing good on yaks, then that's awesome. Good for him. So if people want to check out if people want to register for the Midwest Peace and Liberty Fest, they go to mplfest.org, and
that is correct. Mike Papa Lima Fest.org.
.org. And you guys, you take Bitcoin, right? Or there was one year you took Bitcoin?
They've taken Bitcoin every year. I don't know that they're taking it this year. I can't see why they wouldn't.
Right. Very cool. So, Lou, thank you again for joining us. My back is letting me know that it's time to wrap things up. But before I let you go, is there any other final thoughts? Anything you want to say that you didn't get a chance to say already? Anything else that you want to promote, like your show or anything else? Lousander, the floor is yours.
All right. So if you want to hear my old stuff on Freedom Fiends, you can hear my evolution from brand new radio show host up to when we finally ended it. freedomfiends.com. My stuff, like I said, I'm the absentee landlord of the Lousander Show at lousandershow.com. I should have some new material coming out real soon because I have some interviews from the last fest and some other stuff that I want to start knocking out a little bit quicker. And I've picked up some little technological things, so I should be able to do this a little bit quicker and start getting those out there. And there's some really good stuff in there. I've got an interview with Scott Horton to release. I think the next one is going to be Ben Stone from a couple years ago. And yeah, the one with CJ, because we recorded one in the middle of the night after a couple of beverages, so that's going to be called the Drunken History Podcast. Nice. I haven't listened to it yet, so I don't know how good or how bad it is.
It might be terrible, or it might be the best thing you've ever done, and it's probably not one or the other. It's probably not somewhere in between. It's probably like either horrible or amazing. So. Cool.
Or maybe both.
Yeah,
or maybe both.
maybe
the best and worst at the same time.
You might laugh and cry at the same time. So yeah, lousandershow.com, mplfest.org, and we'll have those in the show notes. And so again, Lou, thank you again. Next time I have you on, I will actually have.
It is your right.
Oh no. See, perfect example. I will next time I will have actually done some stuff so that it will be a little bit less rough than this one. But again, thank you for joining me. Stick around. We're going to talk during the outro, guys. Thank you again. Oh, and also I'm sorry for my squeaky chair. I don't know if anyone else can hear that, but it's been annoying me all day. This has just been a fun show. We're going to say that this wasn't a real 36th episode.
This is real fest. If you don't fest, you can't complain.
Fair enough.
I don't know what that means, but
we're gonna go with that. You can't complain about this. So, guys, thank you again for joining me. Be sure to tune in tomorrow night for the Writer's Block, where Matt Wright will have my former arch enemy and now good friend Shane Sweeney on to talk, presumably about how much he loves me now, and maybe some like libertarian stuff as well. Shane is with the South Carolina Libertarian Party and is just an awesome guy. So be sure to check that out, the Writer's Block. We will not be having an episode of Mr. America, the Bearded Truth this Friday. This will be an actual sabbatical on the Sabbath, no less. And have a great weekend. We will, I believe, also not be having an episode of Mr. America, the Bearded Truth with Jason Lyon on Monday either. I think he will be back the following Friday. But then be sure that, the next day, this coming Tuesday, to tune in to see me and Matt on the Muddy Waters of Freedom, where we cheerfully parse through the week's news with our special flair that we add to it. And then next Wednesday, be sure to tune in to My Fellow Americans. I don't even know who my guest is, but I can guarantee you it'll be great. So, again, thank you for joining us, and God bless you.
They say about an eye for an eye in a time when the blind lead the blind. Who am I to deny? I would cry when a loved one dies. I recognize that body outside, but the holes in the body that was alive. Now confined to a chalk outline. Find out how, but you never know why. It ain't even make it to the news at 9. It ain't even make it to the news at 9. That's my sister, mother, father, brother, son. That's one of mine. All these years I on outside. Who would want to raise a child whom the tomb is flashing by? Now you have to say goodbye when you watch them on the news at 5. Don't tell me how, tell me why.
We